We continue now at the top of Daf Nun Tes Amud Aleph and Meseches Yoma. This is Yoma Daf 59a. On the previous Amud, the Gemara was discussing the sprinkling of the blood the Kohen Gadol does on Yom Kippur and the inner Mizbeach, and the Gemara had asked, according to Rabbi Akiva, why doesn't the Kohen Gadol always turn to his right when going around the Mizbeach? And the Gemara now gives another answer. If you want, I can answer as follows. Isvira lon hakafa beregel. If we held that the Kohen Gadol would actually walk around the inner Mizbeach, everybody agrees we would learn out what we do by the inner Mizbeach from outside of the Heichel. In other words, we would for sure turn to the right. But here the argument is as follows. Mar savar hakafa biyad. One holds that he just extends his hand around the four corners of the Mizbeach. He doesn't actually walk around it. Umar savar hakafa beregel. The other one says no, he actually walks around the Mizbeach. And then again, of course, if you're walking around the Mizbeach, the Kohen Gadol should go to his right. Rashi over here says, if we held that you're going to go around by walking, just like you go around the outer Mizbeach, everyone would say you learn out the inner Mizbeach from the outer Mizbeach as far as going to the right. However, these Tanoim hold that he goes around the Mizbeach just with his hand. He extends his hand to the four corners of the Mizbeach. He stays in the same place. And that's how he sprinkles the blood in all the corners, because he doesn't need to walk around, because the whole size of the Mizbeach HaPnimi is just one amma by one amma. And the Gemara now gives another answer. If you want, I could say another answer to Kuli Alma HaKafa Biyad. Everyone agrees the Kohen Gadol does not walk around the Mizbeach, he just extends his hand. And here the Machlokas is as follows. Mar Savar Yalfinon Yad Miregel. One holds you learn out what you do with your hands from what you do when you're walking around, meaning just like when you walk around the Mizbeach, you go to your right, so too when you're extending the hand, you go to the right. Umar Savar Lo Yalfin, and the other one says, no, we don't learn out the Yad from the Regel. But the Gemara continues, is this really true that everybody agrees that Hakafa is Biyad? The Savar of Yossi Haglili, Hakafa Biyad, does Rabbi Yossi Haglili, he was the one that argued with Rabbi Akiva, does he really hold that Hakafa is Biyad? V'amidaktani Seifa, but if you look at the end of the Mishnah, what does it say? It says, Rabbi Eliezer Omer b'makomo haya omer machate. Rabbi Eliezer is the one at the end of the Mishnah who says that the Kohen Gadol stands in one place, and that's where he sprinkles on the Mizbeach. Mechlal the Tanakama lo svirale. That implies the Tanakama of our Mishnah does not hold that. Now the Tanakama of our Mishnah is the same as Rabbi Yossi Haglili. Ela machvar to Kiddushanin and Meikara. Rather, the Gemara says you're right. We have to go back to the original answer. Mar Savar Hakafa Biyad. One opinion holds Hakafa Biyad, meaning Rabbi Akiva holds the Hakafa is Biyad. Umar Savar Hakafa Beregel. The other opinion, meaning Rabbi Yossi Haglili, says Hakafa Beregel. Rashi over here says Mechlal the Tanakama lo shani le ben Hakafas Pnimi lechitzon ela shnei and Beregel. Again, the Tanakama of our Mishnah is saying that you actually walk around even on the Mizbeach HaPnimi. The Tanakama Demas Nisan Rabbi Yossi Haglili, and Rashi says the Tanakama of our Mishnah is the same as Rabbi Yossi Haglili to Kivase Kamer B'Braisa, because Rabbi Yossi Haglili in the Braisa is the identical position to the Tanakama of Mishnah in terms of the order of which corners of the Mizbeach HaPnimi you sprinkle in what particular order. And the Gemara continues, we'll go with the Girsa of the Gra over here, take out the words Vi Ba'isema, and instead it's a continuation of the answer. Uvaha Kamifiki, here's what they're arguing about. Mar Savar Saviv de Mizbeach Pnimi Kesaviv de Mizbeach Achitzon. One opinion says the same way you walk around the Mizbeach Achitzon, that's how you should walk around the Mizbeach HaPnimi, even though it's very small, even though you can do it all with your hand, you should actually walk around. Umar Savar, the other opinion says, no, Kule Mizbeach Pnimi B'makom Chada Keren de Mizbeach Achitzon Kai. The entire inner Mizbeach is the same size as one corner of the Mizbeach HaChitzon. Rashi over here says, Saviv de Mizbeach HaPnimi Dechsib Be'al Karnos HaMizbeach Saviv. It uses the word Saviv by the inner Mizbeach. Kisaviv de Mizbeach HaChitzon is the same as the Saviv of the Mizbeach HaChitzon. Mazeh Beregel, Afzeh Beregel, just like you walk around the Mizbeach HaChitzon, so too you walk around the Mizbeach HaPnimi. B'makom Chada Keren, the other one says, what are you talking about? The entire Mizbeach HaPnimi is like one corner. Shakeren shel chitzon amal amma, because the corner of the Mizbeach HaChitzon, each corner of the Mizbeach HaChitzon is one amma by one amma, which is the same size as the Mizbeach HaPnimi. And the Gemara continues, Tanya, we learned in a Braisa, Amar Rabbi Yishmael says, Shnei Kohanim Gedolim nishtayru b'mikdash Rishon. There were two Kohanim Gedolim that remain from the first Beis HaMikdash that have reported to us what they did in terms of going around the Mizbeach HaPnimi. Ze Omer biyadi hakafasi v'ze Omer baragli hakafasi. One says I went around with my hands, meaning I didn't actually walk around, I just extended my arm. The other one says, no, I walked around, I actually walked around with my feet. Zenos and Tam Ledvarav, Zenos and Tam Ledvarav. Each one gave a reasoning behind what he did. Zenos and Tam Ledvarav Saviv de Mizbeach Pnimi Kisaviv de Mizbeach Achitzon. One said that the reason why he did it was because the way you go around the Mizbeach HaPnimi should be the same way you go around the Mizbeach HaChitzon, meaning you should walk around by foot. V'zen nos in tam l'dvarav. The other one gave reasoning according to what he did. Kulei Mizbeach Pnimi b'makom chada keren dechitzon kai. The entire Mizbeach HaPnimi is so small, it's the same size as one corner of the Mizbeach HaChitzon, therefore there's no point in walking around. And the Gemara continues that the two dots, quoting the Mishnah, Rabbi Eliezer Omer b'makomo haya omer umechate. Rabbi Eliezer says the Kohen Gadol would stand in one place, and from there he would extend his arms and sprinkle all four corners of the inner Mizbeach. The Gemara now says, Masnisin Moni, who's the author of our Mishnah, meaning which Tana's version of Rabbi Eliezer is our Mishnah? Rabbi Yehuda, it's Rabbi Yehuda. There's a machlokas Tanoim, what exactly Rabbi Eliezer said. Our Mishnah follows Rabbi Yehuda. The Tanya, as we learned in a Brayso, Rabbi Meir Omer, Rabbi Eliezer Omer. Rabbi Meir says that Rabbi Eliezer says as follows. B'mekomo Omer, he would stand in one place, umechate, and he would sprinkle on all the various corners of the inner Mizbeach. V'al kulon hayanosein mimalo lamata. Now on all of them he would start from the top of the corner and sprinkle downward. Chutz me'osa shabal achson, except for the one that was farthest away from him diagonally. Shanosein mimata lamala. For that one he would go from the bottom, he would start below and go upward. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Rabbi Yehuda says, Rabbi Eliezer Omer, that Rabbi Eliezer says as follows. B'mekomo omer umechate, in his place, again, in the same place, he would sprinkle all four corners. V'al kulon hu nosein milmata lamala, in all the corners, he would go from below and go upward. Chutz mizu sh'haisa lefan of mamish, except for the corner right in front of him, that one shenosein mimala lamata, that one he would go from the top downward. Kihechi delo nitvasen money, that would be in order that his clothing should not become dirty. Rashi over here explains, V'al kulon hu nosein milamala lamata, bazusha lefanav. Now the one right in front of him, al karcho, that for sure, there's no doubt he's going to go milmala lamata. That everyone agrees. Kadei shelo yazav hadam lesoch beis yado. That way the blood won't end up pouring into his sleeve and making his clothing dirty. Because since that corner is higher than his hand, his fingers are going to be pointing upward. So if he's going to go from the downward position upward, if he's going to sprinkle upward onto the corner, then the blood is going to end up flowing onto his sleeve. And then Rashi says the other two corners, except for the one furthest away from him, those other two sides, he does it the same basic way that he did it over here. He goes milmala lamata, except for the one that's furthest away from him diagonally. For that one, if he would try to go milmala lamata, Torah chulo, that would be more difficult. Leos kafuf uposhet zeroad close hamatana. He'd have to straighten out his arm until he finishes putting the blood. Elamishakofev gufo uposhet zero maschalamata. He's bent down. He starts again milmata. V'nizkaf aholech lamal. It's easier if he then stands up and goes lamala for that particular corner. And then the other opinion, which is the opinion of our Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda's opinion within Rabbi Eliezer is Valkula Nosen Milmata Lamala. Do all of them Milmata Lamala? Shekach Noach Lo Lechol Harachokos. Again, that's the easiest because you just stand up, except for the one right close to him. That he shouldn't do that way. Talon is Vase Moni Kidafarishas, because then again, his clothing are going to get dirty, as we explained. And the Gemara continues at the two dots, quoting the Mishnah, Hizam Imenu Al Taharo Shemazbeach. It then says that the Kohen Gadol would sprinkle the blood on the Taharo Shel Mizbeach. My Taharo, what does it mean Taharo? Amar Rabba bar Rav Shila, Rabba bar Rav Shila says, Palge the Mizbeach. It means the midpoint of the Mizbeach. Kedamri Inshi, like people say, Tahar Tiara Vave Palge de Yuma. As Rashi over here says, Tahar Tiara, Targum Shel Tzoharayim. This is the translation of the afternoon. Shu Bechatzi Hayom basically means noontime, so it's the midpoint, just like it's the midpoint of the day. Here it's the midpoint of the Mizbeach. Gemara says, Mesa, we have a question. It says, Kishu Maza, Eino Maza Lo Agabe HaEfer V'Lo Agabe HaGecholim. It says you don't sprinkle the blood on top of the ashes or the coals. Elachosa Gecholim Elech Ve'elech. He has to push aside the coals in different directions, Umaz, and then sprinkle. So it sounds like you're doing it directly on top of the Mizbeach. So the Gemara says, Elam Rabba bar Rav Shila. Rather, Rabba bar Rav Shila says, Al Giluya de Mizbeach. It means the open part of the Mizbeach. You clear away what's on the Mizbeach and you sprinkle it directly on the Mizbeach. Kedechsiv, like the pasuk says, Uchaetzam hashamayim laTorah, talking about the sky being clear. So that's the same idea. Gemara says, Tanya, we learned in a Brayso, Chananya Omer, Chananya says, Betzad Safoni, who knows, saying you sprinkle it on top of the Mizbeach, on the northern side of the Mizbeach. Rabbi Yossi Omer, Rabbi Yossi says, Betzad Deromi, who knows, saying when you sprinkle on top of the Mizbeach, you do it on the southern side of the Mizbeach. And the Gemara says, B'mai Kamiflagi, what are they arguing about? Mar Savar Pischa B'darim Koi, one holds that the entrance between the Kodesh and the Kodesh Kodashim was in the south side. Umar Savar Pischa B'tzafon Koi, the other one says it's on the north side. And the Gemara explains, the Kuli Alma Mio Hecha de Gamran Matanas de Kronos Hasam Yoev Al Gago. Everybody agrees that where you finish sprinkling the blood on the corner of the Mizbeach, whatever corner you're on, that's where you put it on top of the Mizbeach. And what's the reason for that? My time, what's the reason? Amar Kra, the pasuk says, V'tiaro v'kidsho, makom shekidsho sham tiaro. In the area where you sanctify it, meaning the same area where you sprinkle at the corner, that's the same area where you're gonna put it on the taharo shel mizbeach, sprinkling on top of the mizbeach. And Rashi over here explains, Chananya omer b'tzad tzvoni hayanosin. Chananya says you sprinkle it on the north side of the mizbeach, kol sheva hazos, all 7 sprinklings. Chananya savar pesach to parochas bedorim. The pshat is as follows. Chananya holds the opening between the Kodesh and the Kodesh Kadashim is on the south side of the parochas. V'chinafik b'ma'arav is dromis paga. So the first corner of the mizbech you arrive at when you leave the Kodesh Kadashim is going to be the southwest corner. V'asam lo yah b'reish shachitoy dekranos k'da'amar adonafik l'mizrach is dromis. Now we already said you don't sprinkle at the first corner you arrive at. Rather you have to pass the entire mizbech. So you go to the southeastern corner. V'yoy v'hader l'ma'arav is dromis l'smol. Then you go back to the southwestern corner to the left. Mishum devahoy chaye b'reisha k'da'amar le'el, because that's the one really you got to first. So you should go back to it. Umisham l'ma'arav is tzvonis. From there you go to the northwest, tzvonis mizrachis, and then you go to the northeast. V'hasam degamar l'chito yoyev sheva hazos. And the idea is where you finish now, you're in the northeast, so it's the north side of the mizbeach. That's where you're going to do the 7 sprinklings. Rabbi Yossi Savar Pesach B'tzafan, and again Rabbi Yossi says the entrance was in the north. Keda ka'amar b'masnisim, like we said in the Mishnah. Hilkach b'mizrachis tzifonis maschil uvidromis mizrachis mesayim. It's going to come out according to Rabbi Yossi that you end at the southeast corner. V'hasam yav lazos. So it's going to end up that you sprinkle on the south side on top of the mizbeach. And then again the Gemara said b'makom shekitchu b'karnosav sham tiaru b'hazos. At the place where you sanctify, at the corners of the mizbeach where you end that process, that's where you're also going to do the tiaro. That's where you're also going to do the sprinklings on top of the mizbeach. The Gemara continues at the 2 dots, quoting the Mishnah, Shiyari hadam hayashofech al yesod ma'aravi sham mizbeach achitzon. Whatever leftover blood there is, he pours it on the yesod, on the foundation, on the western side of the outer mizbeach. And the Gemara says, Diyamar Kra, because the pasuk says, V'yas kol dam par yishboch, all of the blood of the par you pour out. V'chinafik. Now when you're leaving the Beis HaMikdash, going towards the outer mizbeach, Bahu Paga Bereisha, you're going to encounter the west side of the Mizbeach first. And Rashi over here says, Diyamar Kra, because the pasuk says, Gabe par Kohen Mashiach ves kol dam hapar, talking about the par of the Kohen Gadol. It says all of the blood is spilled out. V'tanya b'toras kohanim hapar l'rabos par Yom Kippurim. It says in the Brisa, the word hapar means to say that this is true also by the power of Yom Kippur. Sheyihu shirav nishbachim liyasod asher pesach o moed. You're going to pour out any remaining blood by the part of the Mizbeach, by the Yesod of the Mizbeach that's near the entrance of the Ol Moed of the Beis HaMikdash, Zeh Yesod Ma'aravi, that refers, again, to the western side of the Mizbeach. And the Gemara continues at the 2 dots, V'shel Mizbeach HaChitzon HaYashofech Al Yesod Deromis. It said in the Mishnah that any offering that's sprinkled on the outer Mizbeach, so there you pour the remaining blood on the Yesod of the Mizbeach on the southern side. And the Gemara says, Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Yesod HaMizbeach, it says Yesod HaMizbeach, again talking about Chatas HaChitzona, carbon chatas that's brought on the outer mizbeach, Zeh Yesod Deromis, that refers again to the southern part of the foundation of the mizbeach. Atomer Yesod Deromis, so Enu Ali Yesod Ma'aravis. Now you might think it's the southern, maybe it's the western side. How do you know it's the southern side? So Amrin Yilmad Yuridasum and Akavesh Lietziasum and Ahechel. The answer is we learn out when he comes down from the ramp. When you have an offering that's on the outer mizbeach, you're coming down the ramp. And then when you have an offering that's sprinkled on the inner mizbeach, like our case over here on Yom Kippur, you're coming out of the heichal. So ma yitziyasum and heichal b'samachlo, just like when you have an offering which you sprinkle on the inner mizbeach, so you pour out the remaining blood on the area of the mizbeach that's near the exit. You exit the Beis HaMikdash, you arrive at the western side of the mizbeach first. That's where you're going to pour out all the blood. Ve'ezazaz yesod ma'aravi. And which one is it? That's going to be the western side of the yesod of the mizbeach. So af yuridasum and akavesh, the same is true when he comes down from the ramp. Let's say he's doing the sprinkling of the blood on the outer mizbeach. So b'samachlo, he's gonna pour the remaining blood in the area of the mizbeach that's nearby. Ve'ezeh ze yesod deromi. What is that? Again, that refers to the southern yesod of the mizbeach. And the Gemara continues. Tanya, we learned in a brayso. Rabbi Yishmael says, Zeh v'zeh yesod ma'aravi. In both situations, whether it's something that's on the inner mizbeach or whether it's a carbon that the blood is sprinkled on the outer mizbeach, you always pour the remaining blood on the western yesod. Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai says, Zeh v'zeh yesod deromi. No, in both cases, it's actually the southern part of the yesod that you pour out the remaining blood. So the Gemara says, B'shlama Rabbi Yishmael kasavar yilmud sasam mimafurish. I understand Rabbi Shmuel who says it's the western side. He's learning out where it's not written from that where it is written. Rashi over here says, Yilmut sasam chitzonos shelo porish behen le'ezi yisod. When it comes to the chitzonos, the ones that you're doing on the outer mizbech, it doesn't say which yisod. Min ha-mefurash min ha-pnimius. Now from the inner mizbech ones, it does say, shekasu behen el yisod ha-mizbech asher pesach ol moed. It says by the yisod of the mizbech, that's by the entrance of the ol moed. Hu yisod ma'aravi. The area of the mizbech that's by the entrance to the Beis HaMikdash is going to be the western side of the Mizbeach. So that makes sense. According to Rabbi Shmuel, you're going to learn out Sasami Mefurish. El Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, my time. But according to Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, who says that it is in the southern part of the Yesod, what's the reason? And the Gemara answers, Amar Rav Ashi. Rav Ashi says, Kasavar, because Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai holds Pischa B'Daram Koi, that the entrance actually of the Beis HaMikdash is towards the southern side. Rashi over here says, Kasavar Pischa de Heichel, the entrance of the Heichel. The entrance of the Beis HaMikdash, Bidromo Shal Mizbeach Koi, is really at the southern side of the Mizbeach. Hilkach Yisod Asher Pesach Ol Moed Hainu Dromi. Therefore, the Yisod of the Mizbeach that's Pesach Ol Moed is the southern side. In other words, it is true, of course, that the western side of the Mizbeach is closer to the entrance in the sense that as you walk west, you're walking towards the door. But it is also true that the southern side of the Mizbeach, that's right corresponding to the entrance to the doorway of the Ol Moed, and so therefore that's why he says it's always going to be the southern side. Gemara then says, Tana Devei Rabbi Shmuel b'Devei Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. It was taught in the yeshiva of Rabbi Shmuel in the yeshiva of Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai. Zev v'zeh Yisod Jeromis. That actually it's both the Yisod Jeromis. It's going to be the southern side. The simonech, and the siman of this is mashchua gavre legavra. The majority pulled the individual. Rashi over here explains. Tana Devei Rabbi Shmuel b'Devei Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. Zev v'zeh Yisod Jeromi, meaning b'veis midrash shel Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. What this means is as follows. In the Beis Medrash of Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, how you shown in Mishnah's Rabbi Yishmael, that's where they would teach the Mishnah of Rabbi Yishmael differently. In other words, our version of Rabbi Yishmael is, as we said, Yisod Ma'aravi. It's the western side. But in Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai's yeshiva, they had a different version of Rabbi Yishmael, and that was V'garsin ba zev v'zeh Yisod Dromi. They understood that he said it was the Yisod Dromi, the southern side, Lomar Chazer bo Rabbi Yishmael, meaning Rabbi Yishmael actually changed his mind and came over to Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai's side. The siman shelo sita lomar zev v'zeh Yisod Ma'aravi. Now, how do you remember this, that you shouldn't go the opposite direction, how you're shown? How do you know they're all agreeing Yisod Dromi, not Yisod Ma'aravi? Mashchua gavre legavre, meaning Talmidei Rabbi Shimon, the students of Rabbi Shimon, Moshchu es Rabbi Yishmael lomar kedivrein. They pulled over Rabbi Yishmael to their opinion, meaning the majority pulled over Rabbi Yishmael to their side. And the Gemara continues at the two dots, quoting the Mishnah, Elu ve'elu mesarvin b'am aviyotzin v'chulu. It said again, all that remaining blood ended up going into the stream and flowing out. And the Gemara says, Tanu Rabbon, and the rabbis taught, Moalin b'damim divrei Rabbi Meir Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Shimon say that if you use that blood for personal use, that's going to be a problem of Me'ilah. The Chachamim say, Ein Moalin, but it's not a problem of Me'ilah. We'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Nun Tes Amud Beis.